Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are doing another cartridge comparison. We're doing what many would say an odd cartridge comparison. We're going to compare the Man Bun 7mm PRC to the FUD 270 Winchester. If any of you have ever taken a deep dive into the comments section of YouTube, you'll know two really vocal, annoying fans. The fanboys of the 7PRC and the fanboys of the 270 Winchester. So I thought I'd just pit them against each other. At first glance, you might think the 7PRC would absolutely demolish the 270 Winchester. But I think you're going to be surprised by the results with a modern 270. The 270 Winchester is a great lower 48 cartridge. It has velocity, it has flat trajectory. The only thing that I feel like holds the 270 back, at least up until recently, has been the lack of bullet options you have and the slower twist rate. So what do I mean by that? Well, on the low end, you're looking at a 100 grain bullet, and at the top end, unless you get a 160 partition, usually it's around a 150 grain bullet. When you think about it, in like a 30 caliber, a 150 grain bullet is considered pretty light. And for the 270, 150 grain is pretty heavy. In my opinion, it's not the most ideal big game cartridge, but it certainly can do it. Then in 2021, Browning and Winchester introduced a new 270 cartridge that would absolutely revitalize the 270 Winchester and give it a modern update. Now that cartridge, of course, is the 6.8 Western, a very good short-action little magnum that hits well above its weight. What happened was when the 6.8 Western was introduced, Nosler, Berger, and a few other companies started making heavier, higher BC bullets, and Browning has now started to make a fast twist 270 Winchester with a 1 7.5 twist. Last year, I decided to try something what I thought might be stupid to do, was to shoot one of these high BC bullets, what's loaded in this one, a 165 grain Accubon long range, in my slow twist 270 Winchester. And lo and behold, due to my elevation of being at 5,100 feet, the bullets were plenty stable and shot extremely well. I was getting half MOA and good velocities. I had a friend that tried the 170 grain Berger, which we will be highlighting in today's video, in his 270, and he was getting very good accuracy and very good velocities. In late of 2022, Hornady, with much fanfare, introduced the 7mm PRC. And to this day, it is still probably one of the most popular magnums. When people buy a new magnum, people are getting the 7 PRC. Now, it is a good cartridge. However, after a year and with the powder gate, this cartridge was a bit overhyped and it's just not getting the velocities. Now, don't get me wrong, it is still a good cartridge even if you can't hit 3,000 feet per second with a 175 grain bullet in factory ammo. You're still looking at 28 to 2,900 feet per second, which matches a 7 Rem mag in factory ammo, and honestly, it's a good cartridge. I have personally owned a 7 PRC for about 3 months, maybe a little more, and I learned some very valuable things. The only way you're getting 3,000 feet per second with a 175 grain bullet is with either Reloader 26, N560, or N570. Now, reloaders can get it if you push it a little past what the books say, and I have done that. And the most I can get with a 175 grain in a 24-inch barrel is around 2950 with tons of pressure. At the book max with Reloader 22, which was supposed to get me 3,000 feet per second, I was getting 2875 with a lot of pressure. So how on earth does a 270 Winchester compete against the 7 PRC? Well, the faster twist, or if you're at higher elevation, we're getting pretty good velocities out of the 270 Winchester, while for the 7 PRC, we're getting below book velocities than we expected. Let's get to the ballistics. Let's start with the 7 PRC we're going to use a 175 grain ELDX, which kind of gives the PRC a bit of an advantage over the 270 Winchester. With a BC of 0.689, it's very good. We're going to use my hand-loaded data of a max velocity of 2875 feet per second. There's your energy at 3212. Then let's just take it out to conventional hunting distances. At 400 yards, bullets going 2,359 feet per second, and your energy, very respectable, 2,163 foot-pounds with 25.3 inches of drop. Now, don't worry, we are going to compare the 7 PRC past 500 yards, like so many of the fans want us to do, and we'll go all the way out to 1,000 yards to see what kind of advantages this PRC really has. Now, for the moment you've been waiting, what is the 270 Winchester like with a 170 grain bullet? We're using the Berger EOL with a BC of 0.661, muzzle velocity of 2850. That is what my friend was getting in a 22-inch barrel, by the way. The energy, 3,067 foot-pounds, so about 150 foot-pounds less at the muzzle. However, at 400 yards, the bullet is not too far behind, going 2,316 feet per second, and your energy, check that out. It's almost with 100 foot-pounds of the 7 PRC, and only 26 inches of drop. Almost zero difference at 400 yards. Now let's see what kind of numbers past 400 yards and out to 1,000. With the 270, with the 170 grain EOL at 2850 at 500 yards, we have almost 2,200 feet per second and 1,815 foot-pounds of energy. That is the drop in MOA, 8.95. And with a 10 mile per hour wind, that is the wind adjustment in MOA, 2.49. Out to 1,000 yards, bullets going 1,635 feet per second and just a little bit over 1,000 foot-pounds. So not a distance that could ethically kill game. And we have 26.6 MOA drop and then 5.74. Now let's take a look at the 7 PRC with the 175 grain ELDX at 2875 feet per second. At 500 yards, the bullet's going 2239 feet per second. And the energy is a little more than 100 foot-pounds more than the 270 at 500. And then the drop, pretty close, 8.68. And then the wind adjustment, almost identical with a slight advantage. Out to 1,000 yards, it's going 1,694 feet per second, so almost a 75 feet per second advantage. And your energy, again, a little over 100 more foot-pounds. And they're within about 1 MOA with drop. And the windage, not a huge difference, but a slight advantage to the 7 PRC. Now, 7 PRC fans, before you start cussing me out in the comments for not using federal factory ammo that gets close to or at 3,000 feet per second, I understand. In factory ammo, the 7 PRC definitely has a ballistic advantage over the 270. I also understand that you have a lot more bullet selection in the 7 PRC. We could be shooting 180, 185, 190, 195 grain bullets, and they would do better than a 270 Winchester. The point of this video is with real-world velocities and with hand-loaded data, the 270 Winchester is holding its own against the 7 PRC.